when they were getting 14 months a year of salary? Where were they when people of 50 who were hairdressers were retiring early on their pensions because it was so dangerous? Where were they when bus drivers in Athens got a bonus if they turned the bus on? This has been an exercise in unreality in Greece, of living beyond their means, and they have to leave the euro because they have come very close time and time again to crashing a continent. They voted in this government as well. You have to remember this. They voted in this government. They did not have to vote for the far left anti-reality economics of Syriza, but they did. Things have consequences, and they are showing something that everyone needs to see. As I say, they are the economics of Mr. Corbyn, but they are not the economics of reality.
Martin Shaw.
Is it realistic to think the UK can protect its citizens abroad?
No, but we can't protect British citizens. The British government and security services can't protect British citizens all the time. They can do as much as they can at home and abroad, and I think they've got the capabilities they need to do that. But, you know, the nature of terrorism is that it chooses targets in such a way that it tends to choose weak targets. It's the nature of terrorism. It goes for people precisely in things like this, on a beach, enjoying a holiday. It's one of the wicked things about terrorism, but it's one of the things that makes it effective as well. And I think we have to be very careful in our response not to play into the terrorists' hands. You know, the terrorists want to ruin Tunisia on this occasion in particular, ruin the tourist economy of Tunisia, which is so important to that country, a country which is perhaps the only success story of the events called the Arab Spring. But one thing I would say, though, is that there's something which happened this week which I do think needs to be flagged up. On Monday, the Prime Minister got into a hermeneutic battle with the BBC about what we call these terrorists. He said they shouldn't be called ISIS, they shouldn't be called Islamic State. This is a big mistake, I would suggest. All of the linguistic wordplay aside, first of all, it doesn't help. We never called the IRA the so-called IRA, and the Islamic State is the Islamic State. It is what it says it is. It's what it claims to be. It's very Islamic, and it claims to be a state. Calling it ISIL, which was one of the other suggestions of the Prime Minister, is ludicrous, because ISIL simply means the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Another suggestion was Daesh. Well, Daesh is just the Arabic for the same thing, for Islamic State. And
they're not going to get rid of it, whatever by changing its name, are you?
Exactly.
So why bother?
Exactly. So this is why I wanted to raise it, was because when the Prime Minister said this, it seemed to me to be a demonstration of weakness. It is not the role of the Prime Minister of this country to tell the BBC what the Islamic State should be called, and nor is it the role of the Prime Minister to get into that kind of wordplay. It should be the role of the Prime Minister, I think, to say 30 British citizens were killed in cold blood. Now, Britain as a state should respond to that very forcefully.
They are a state. I think they're very well funded, I think they're very well armed, and I think we do need to bomb them. We cause some of the problems, I agree, but we still need to bomb them. We need to fight back, and we need to do something.
Come from?
It doesn't matter where it came from. It comes from. It's there. It's there. And given the chance, they would happily walk across and do it here, happily. And they will sacrifice themselves. As far as the guy in Tunisia fought, he's now in paradise. He would have completely, 100% believed that he would die a martyr and he's off to paradise. That's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous to the audience. But that guy would be happy in the knowledge that he's going to be shot. He wasn't hiding. He didn't run in, try and shoot someone, run away. He went in, happily strolled about shooting people. It's a disgrace that we're not doing more. We should be we should be fighting them on the ground. We should do all we can to eradicate this group. It's crazy.
A couple of quick points. First of all, this kind of action predates our recent interventions in the region. In 1996, something very similar to what happened the other day happened at Luxor in Egypt, where a group of Swiss tourists were massacred and beheaded at the sites there. That was before 9/11, before Afghanistan and Iraq. That needs to be said. Secondly, we did not intervene in Syria. We cannot blame ourselves every time we do intervene and every time we don't. We did not intervene in Syria. This country, the Labour Party decided not to enforce the red lines when Assad used chemical weapons. We did not intervene there, and ISIS, as a result, among other things, of the fact that Syria has broken apart and neither we nor any other country knows what to do about it. It is a huge problem. It is not a simple one. But very quickly, look, there was no decent plan in Syria at that point. This is why it was not an appropriate thing to do. But look, let's just get back to the point on this. The fact is that there is no border now between Syria and Iraq. There is something ludicrous about forces from the region and outside the region bombing an ISIS camp when it is on the Iraqi side of the border, but not when it's on the Syrian side of the border.
That point.
To be able to properly combat Daesh, should we really be considering putting boots on the ground and working in an international coalition with people like Saudis, the Turkish, to properly get them, and probably even working with Bashar al-Assad to try and get rid of these people who...
Would you like to answer that? Would you like to see that?
Very quickly. What we would have to do before that is to decide what as a nation we wished to achieve in the region. There are a whole set of things. It may be the case, for instance, I mean, this is the complexity of the situation. If you do anything that ends up overthrowing Assad, you've got a completely lawless country there. On the other hand, we don't want to be Assad's friend, but we can't topple him. It's the same across the region. If you defeat ISIS too much, then the Iranian forces that are going throughout the region benefit as well, and there's a whole set of knock-on consequences. So all I would say is, what we have to do first is decide what is the strategic objective. I think a legitimate strategic objective is to punish ISIS, but we will not do that if we take the Jeremy Corbyn line of thinking it is so much easier to blame ourselves. It's always the easiest thing in this country now. It's not to do with us. ISIS has its own centrifugal force, and it has its own ownership of its own crimes.
Okay.
I am a teacher in a school. I teach French in a school in Newham to a predominantly Islamic population there, and it's an all-girls school. And the students in the school are very anti the Islamic State and think it's ridiculous, and think what happened to the girls in Bethnal Green is absolutely ridiculous. They'd never do something like that. I teach French there. I don't know how someone like me would be able to pick up on those signs. I'd certainly be looking for them. I do think it's my responsibility, if I find them, to report them. But I do agree with what the gentleman said earlier, that it is not necessarily the teachers that we should be looking to pick up these signs. It's the parents, it's the communities, it's the students and the friends who should be picking up on these things, more so than teachers.
Okay. Douglas Murray.
I mean, just quickly, to say a word of praise as well for the government. What they're trying to do at the moment is to find a comprehensive strategy that goes across all government departments. This hasn't existed in recent years. It didn't exist under the last government or the one before that. And what they're trying to do is to plug those loopholes, as it were, where there are areas of the state that have been totally given up their responsibility in this regard. You know, they've got a criteria in relation to Ofcom and foreign language stations that broadcast into the UK with extremist material. They've got tightening up of the Charity Commission to make sure that extremists don't use British charities and so on. So this is part of a comprehensive strategy, which the teaching element is just one bit of. And really it is to say, just like everybody else in society, as Jeremy Hunt says, to take responsibility where you see it. Now, the Bethnal Green schoolgirls case, among others, shows it is a real concern. I agree with the gentleman here. I mean, there is something, we are demanding everything and nothing to an extent. People expect, for instance, the police to know if a girl is likely to go to Syria, whereas they don't expect the man who, you know, the father who sleeps in the next door bedroom necessarily to know. So it is an extremely complex situation, but I think there is a minimum that teachers could do, and I think in many cases will. But just very quickly on this issue of what Nicky Morgan raised, I find this very problematic, I have to say. Saying, you know, what we have to do here is to talk about what British values are, and we have to be very clear about what they are. And I think that saying, for instance, that homosexuality... I mean, Nicky Morgan, I remember a few years ago when I was writing pieces in support of gay marriage, Nicky Morgan didn't support gay marriage at the time. But, you know, these things have moved very fast, and I worry that what is happening at the moment is that in an attempt to pin down what Britishness is, we're putting it on very wide but very shallow ground. You know, Britishness is about more than just some of the things that are coming up. It is about a history. It is about how we got here. It is about the fact that this is unique and or at least very rare in human history to have this kind of tolerance and diversity and to make it work.
Thank you, Douglas.
I think recently a lot of the problem with Greece comes from this ever closer federal union between the European states and how perhaps bureaucrats are taking control of Greece's own fiscal policy. Do we not see the danger in Britain that perhaps the bureaucrats, if we remain in this union, is not going to take control more of our fiscal policy?
Well, you know, you don't have to be an economist to know one of the most crucial lessons of economics or of politics, which is things that cannot go on won't. And Greece in recent years has been an attempt to buck that law Of course we feel sorry for the people of Greece now. Of course we do. But feeling sorry for people doesn't mean you can absolve them of the responsibilities for why they've got there. Where were the people who are on the streets today queuing a few years back when they were getting 14 months a year of salary? Where were they when people of 50 who were hairdressers were retiring early on their pensions because it was so dangerous? Where were they when bus drivers in Athens got a bonus if they turned the bus on? This has been an exercise in unreality in Greece, of living beyond their means, and they have to leave the euro because they have come very close time and time again to crashing a continent. They voted in this government as well. You have to remember this. They voted in this government. They did not have to vote for the far left anti-reality economics of Syriza, but they did. Things have consequences.
All right.
And they are showing something that everyone needs to see. As I say, they are the economics of Mr. Corbyn, but they are not the economics of reality.
And Martin Schulz is trying to get rid of the Greek government in this process.
Things that cannot go on won't.
Okay.
Well, that was a mattering of Douglas Murray's answers to questions, from the crowd. Best of Douglas Murray. We're going to put some more of these together for you as well, folks, because he just answers the questions the way that you want them to be answered. He doesn't dilly-dally around. He just gets right to the heart of the matter, right? The first question basically was the language that the government's using. Trying to be nice. Oh, we're not going to call the terrorists. We'll call them insurgents. Oh, we don't want to call them ISIS because that just sounds so bad. And so, it was, like you said, the so-called IRA, did we call it, maybe it was the Nazis, the so-called Nazis? Would anybody have said at that time in World War II, do not use the word Nazi? Oh, you're going to make Adolf Hitler, you're going to make him cry. You're going to make him upset because you use the word. You're going to make the German people upset because they're using the word Nazi. Would anybody have thought that? When you're fighting the Japanese and you said you were fighting the Japs, anybody would have said anything about that at that time? Oh, you can't say that. That's going to be triggering. You can't call the Japanese Japs. You can't do that. You can't use that terminology. Now we look back and said, oh my God, what were we talking? We were using all kinds of derogatory remarks for them. We were fighting an enemy that attacked us at Pearl Harbor and was willing. Could you imagine right now if we didn't do that, we'd all be speaking Japanese and eating sushi every day? I mean, come on, folks. That's what Douglas Murray was saying. Governments are out there. The Obama monarchy did the same damn thing over here. They're not terrorist attacks. They're like trouble spots. It was a fight. There was a fight. Somebody lit something that sort of, was like a BOMB. And then it just went, like in the comics, you see, kapow. And, some people died, whatever. And the reason that was saying was that the guy, said a couple of religious things. Sung some hymns, some songs, said a few things. That's what it was. We don't want to hurt the terrorists' feelings. Because if we hurt the terrorists' feelings, they'll just get more mad at us. And there'll be more terrorists popping up. So we can't be doing that kind of crap. Amazing, folks. Just amazing. And the one guy saying that, yes, they believe this crapola. Somehow. They get indoctrinated. Whatever you want. They get radicalized somehow. We don't understand how they get radicalized. But to say, because of British policy, American policy, no, they were radicalized even before that. They hated the West, the great state in America, its little brother England. Didn't have anything. I mean, this was going on even before. There were little pockets going on. It just seems that's flourished after 9/11. And so, yes, the government has got to decide to make a stand. Are you fighting an insurgency? No. Are you fighting a small group of guerrillas? No, you're not. You're fighting the Islamist state. You're not fighting Islam. You're fighting the Islamist state, the caliphate, the people that want to bring about a caliphate, the people that want to institute Islamism, a theocratic version of a caliphate to spread across the world. Has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. It has to do with theocracy and power. That's all. And then the teacher comes up and said, yeah, it's not her job. And she was referring to the thing where girls. Now, what's happening with the girls, folks, is that these girls are not being given enough attention or love in their home at all. And this is part of that culture mentality that is coming from those immigrants and those, migrants that are coming over here and still have that old world thinking that girls are not equal to boys, women are not equal to men, and these girls are not given enough attention. In many instances, they are yelled at, screamed at, they're beaten by their father. They're just subjugated to all sorts of cruelty. And so all of a sudden they go on a website and there's some man or some woman up there that's basically saying, everything that they can say to make a young girl feel good about herself, or it's something that she's looking at that and going, I want that because I don't have that here. I don't have that in my home. No one is showing me anything. No one is showing me love. No one's showing me attention. But if I go over to ISIS, if I go over to Syria, if I go over to Iraq, if I go to Iran, it's a 5-star hotel. It's nirvana. It's heaven. That lady is saying that I am worth something, that I can do my part for humanity. And I can meet a guy, a soldier, a man who's doing something, who will love you, who will treat you right. Yeah, right. They got the hook. Yep. And so these girls are leaving England, getting the money for a ticket. Boom, off to Syria, off to Turkey, off to Iran, off to Iraq. Sometimes the British police were catching them. Somehow the family member, somebody found out and stopped them before they actually got on the plane. Or maybe they were too young and somebody checked an age and said, what's going on here? But many of them did find ways to escape and get over it. And then when they were over there, what happened? They found out that they were trapped. This isn't what they were. It's completely opposite. Beaten and raped by the men that were over there. And they had no idea, but now it's too late. Some of the girls were managed to escape. Some of the girls were brought back. The British Home Secretaries, they had to form a division, a department to help girls come back from countries like Pakistan and other places to find these. These are British-born girls, for crying out loud. And then the final thing he answered the question was about, Greece and everything. Yeah, you live beyond your means. Nobody complained then. They got all kinds of money. They're being bailed out how many times by the IMF, World Bank, by Britain and others, and living beyond your means. And then no Greece people complained then. And now all of a sudden they're crying because they don't have the government to have any money. And they have to put in all these austerity programs. And they've got to buckle their belt big time. Douglas is right. Elections have consequences. You don't have to vote in a leftist, socialist, Marxist, government. Hey, elections have consequences, people. They certainly do. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasser, and if you haven't done so already, we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel if we've earned it and you like our content. check out our other videos here and below. Like us, share us, follow us. You know what it's all about. My final thought, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.